Namaste, my name is Anmol and I'm here playing the role of a yoga teacher, a course coordinator for the teachers training course and all other small courses which happen here. And I primarily take asana classes and some theory classes, and even more than that, I'm here to serve all of the people who come here and get the experience of a beautiful yoga practice on the mat and off the mat.
Hare Krishna. My name is Nimai Leela Das. I serve here as the head philosophy teacher, and during the course of all the yoga programs that happen here, my role is to take you through this beautiful journey of yoga philosophy.
Namaste, my name is Aarti and I teach yoga here at Govardhan School of Yoga. Teaching everybody who comes, I just want to help everyone, heal everyone. So whether it's prenatal classes, kids classes, teacher training classes for aspiring people who come to yoga school. So I am here for everyone, sharing yoga along with teaching methodologies for TTC people.
So please tell us about the inception of Govardhan School of Yoga.
It is an amazing journey of how this school of yoga started, and it all started by the desire of one person, and that one person is the founder of this place, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. He always wanted some yoga activity to happen here, whether be it some asana practice or anything that people could connect to, the practice which will make them a little more healthier physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and in all ways. So that was the beginning of this school in his heart, in his mind. And then after that, he started looking for yoga teachers. And at that point, maybe 6 years ago, or before 6 years, I just happened to meet the director of this place, Govardhan Eco Village, Gauranga Prabhu, in one of the kitchens. And that's where he asked me what your wife does. You got married, what your wife does. And I was like, yes, Prabhuji, she is a yoga teacher. So he said, okay, get your wife here. Let her see all of the things which are happening here and see whether she can do something or not. And that's where our journey here as a Govardhan School of Yoga founders or whatever started. Well, when we came here, we had no plans of starting a yoga school. Our thought was very simple. We'll come here, we'll teach some asana classes and we'll teach some breathing classes, and that's it. But from there, how when a person who has a big vision empowers the other people who are not worthy of what they get many times, that's where Gauranga Prabhu told us to start a proper teacher training course here, which is of 28 days. And that's how we were literally pushed into the water and we were made to swim. And we did swim and it was a fantastic swim. We somehow remained afloat for the first 2 years. That was the testing time where we had a lot of ups and downs, a lot of different trials and errors and everything, and somehow the ship started to sail in a very nice and proper way. Again, I will give the same credit to the will and the wish and the intention of Radhanath Swami Maharaj. I don't think we are capable of doing what is happening here, but because we are guided and supported in all way by such amazing people like Radhanath Swami Maharaj, Gauranga Prabhu, and a lot of other pioneers of this place, that's what made this school what it is right now.
Can you tell us about how it has evolved over the years?
So again, it is an interesting journey. I remember still that time when we had come for some asana classes or some pranayam programs, and then Gaurang Prabhu said that why don't we try this certified courses here. As most of you, if you know Gaurang Prabhu, if you don't know him, worth knowing him. He's very ambitious when it comes to any project and he wants to try the big things first. So we don't know why, but we just said yes without any planning in our hand or anything that how this is going to happen, a certified courses. We've never done that before in this place. So we just jumped into it and we realized that how are we going to market, or it's all about marketing nowadays. We need to tell people how that we have started some program here, certified courses. We had no idea. We just came and said yes. And then we realized that all our participants are the insiders who stay in the ashram. And at that time we thought, let's start that way, there's no problem, okay. And as soon as we finished that batch, we realized that so many of them understood the mood of what is this teacher training courses, and they ended up helping us. And that's how slowly then we announced second batch, and then we had few people coming in from all over India. Then gradually we had people coming from the West. And I believe that the experience that they got at Eco Village has really made us to go popular with word of mouth mainly. So this is how I would say precisely that we are evolved with word of mouth. We haven't really tried any hardcore marketing or reaching out to people yet. But I feel that our students, our participants, the seekers who came here, who had amazing holistic experience, they just suggested people to come here. Through their transformative journey, they are sending and pushing people to come here for their experience. So this is how we have evolved over the period of time as far as seekers coming here. And as a school in itself, I think teacher training course is not just where students are getting trained, but also teachers are getting trained with every batch. So I still remember how much different execution idea we had in the beginning, and now how smoothly it is flowing in with the help of others, with how we are learning with every batch. So it's just evolving, and I'm looking forward. It's just a beginning now, I feel, even after 5 years, and it's a long way to go.
Just adding more to what Aarti was mentioning, traditionally ISKCON as an institution is more known for its Bhakti Yoga practice, and its entry into, or the popularity in the field of Ashtanga or Hatha is not so much. And also even in that field we are kind of late entrants, right? There are already very established schools. So in a sense we also had to come up with our own. There has to be an evolution of our own identity in this space, and which also happened so beautifully because as she was mentioning, we never actually focused more on an all-out marketing, and that's usually the typical strategy that people would have, but rather the focus was more on enhancing the quality of experience that the people, the students who come here, they actually have. And it just worked out so beautifully, right? I mean, people come here over the years, the students that we ask, they don't come here just for a typical yoga asana experience, but what attracts them in the first place is this holistic picture that GV represents in terms of its outlook towards the ecological sustainability, in terms of its community outreach, the social outreach, the whole community model here, right? And of course, along with this, the sacred tradition, which is strongly rooted in the bhakti practices. I think that whole picture creates a very attractive offer for people to want to come here, and that itself has been our biggest marketing as such. And of course, when people get that experience, that's what matters at the end of the day. And as she was saying, that what spread through word of mouth. So in short, our evolution has been just the place itself, right?
Adding one more thing to this, I was just thinking about this. The irony is, I remember a lot of students, this is not an easy course. It's a pretty intense course, physically, mentally, emotionally, in all ways. So the participants who kind of suffered a lot in this course, somehow they were just thrown out of their circle, their comfort zone and everything. When they went back, and in retrospect, when they started getting the benefits of derived after doing that 1 month course, maximum number of word of mouth students or word of mouth participants who have come because of the participants who have had a very tough time here. Their references. It's not the ones who have had a very nice jolly time. Of course, they are also recommending.
Right.
But the ones who have had the most miserable time, apparently, they ended up speaking about this the most, and yeah, that's a big part, and that's a big sign that what we are doing may seem a little tough. What they go through may seem a little tough, but eventually it just brings the best out of them.
We started with yoga teacher training courses thinking that fine, it is something that everybody appreciates a lot nowadays, and this is the way where people connect to the actual and real holistic meaning of yoga. But gradually we also realized that not everybody is looking for a certification course, or they are not wanting to teach, but they just want to experience some kind of a discipline in their lifestyle. They want to heal themselves, they have some disorders. And then we came across various people sharing with us that they're not interested in any certified programs, but they wish to just learn yoga from us or to come to this place. So this is where, I think our love from others, their feedbacks, their needs helped us to design more programs. And that's where we came with some programs of women wellness. And then women said that we have children too, and they also want to learn something. And that's where we started kids yoga programs. Then there were some who said that I have a lot of problems with my body, I won't be able to do your intensive programs. That's where we started with some programs like Arogyam, therapeutic needs being addressed through yoga practices. So this is how we evolved by just as the word of mouth went viral. People said not just certified course, but can I just come here and experience this wonderful place, which is like, the combination of sustainability concepts, ecology, you have Ayurveda here, and you have wonderful temple atmosphere, you have so much of greenery. Can I just come here and stay and do some yoga? So we have some retreats program also happening. So that is how from just a certified course, now there are endless list of courses that we are into. And along with that, there are some seekers who maybe they already move their body, they are into yoga, they're into some fitness, they are physically fit, but they are looking for some higher meaning of yoga, philosophy. So that's where we have also come across with some philosophy courses online and offline. So I think it's just no looking back. We are growing and growing and growing, and various courses are coming up in the bucket of Govardhan School of Yoga.
So when Aarti ji talks about philosophy, can you please tell how relevant is philosophy when we talk about yoga?
This has been an area which I've been personally working on over the past many years, taking a lot of inputs from both Aarti and Anmol. In a sense, my whole passion in this field, it began with my own experience of the way yoga philosophy is being taught. The world of philosophy is such an amazing world, and oftentimes underrepresented and sometimes misrepresented, right? And what gives substance to any kind of a practice is this foundational philosophy, right? It's good, people do get a nice feel good experience when they actually engage in asanas and pranayama, but the great teachers of the past who gave us these sacred practices, they had a strong philosophical basis, right? All these practices were rooted in some strong philosophy, and to get a very genuine and a complete understanding of these practices, it's also very important to at least get some foundational understanding of these philosophical concepts, and with this backing of philosophy, one can become very strongly rooted in one's practices. This has been my very strong personal understanding, and when I saw the way yoga philosophy was many times decoupled and just taught for the sake of teaching, and not with the intention of adding some deep substance to students, but rather more as a like a filler as part of the course. Okay, certain certifying bodies want some philosophy hours to be filled in, right? Okay, so let's throw in some philosophy, right, like some side dish to the main course. So I think that really triggered me in saying that no, I think we need to do some justice to the way philosophy is being presented. And with that, I had discussions with some of my own mentors, and based on which we had formulated some very nice curriculum, which in a sense our objective was not to overwhelm students suddenly with deep concepts. Philosophy can be overwhelming sometimes, right, but at the same time not dilute it so much. So in a sense all our courses, they are actually like a nice staircase, and which takes students through this wonderful journey where they keep discovering. Week 1, you know, and then week 2 and week 3 we slowly raise the tempo, and students they feel that they feel that they are getting something of substance. And it's not just that, as Aarti ji was mentioning, students want to come back for more, and this has been such a very overwhelming experience for me personally as a philosophy teacher, where on one side of the world where you see yoga philosophy is just as a filler in many courses, here people want to actually come back exclusively for philosophy. And to fulfill their needs, we've started a whole range of philosophy intensive courses also. So this I think is a wonderful, it's a hallmark not to us but actually to the core tenets that this yoga philosophy actually represents. So I think these are two inseparable aspects. If somebody really wants to get their yoga practice in proper shape, they need to have it strongly rooted in philosophy, right? Otherwise it's like this big gigantic tree with no roots. There's one strong storm in the life is going to uproot the tree at any point, right? So this has been our experience with yoga philosophy.
Some of these social media aspects have created this imbalance when it comes to the yoga part. Whatever we see on the Instagram, Facebook, moreover, popularly nowadays are some flexible yogis doing some asanas, and that's where people get misleaded that alright, yoga is all about having a flexible body and I have to bend in all the directions and twist in all the directions and then I'm a yogi. So whatever is promoted nowadays moreover on the social media is what people perceive to be yoga, and this is where I feel that it's a big missing link that people are missing in their lives when they are seeking yoga in its big picture. So yoga in its big picture is not about learning some asanas and mastering them. Even if they do, we have seen that it creates imbalance in our lives. That maybe we are physically very fit, but when it comes to any problem handling or handling some situation, challenges, emotionally and mentally, no matter how flexible we are broken down. So this is where philosophy is also important on the beginning level. Obviously the goal of philosophy is not just problem solving at the end of the day, but definitely it is one of the best side effects that one can experience if one starts to learn philosophy, the bigger picture of yoga along with some wonderful breath work and asana practice, and they are learning how to deal with life with philosophy, I feel.
Just adding more to that, you know, because I've been teaching philosophy for much before the school of yoga, but I see the way philosophy has such a deep impact on our students, on the yoga students. I think it works in such a nice beautiful sync. Yoga, the asana and the pranayama practice opens up a deeper level of their awareness, right? All the blockages that they've had at their physical and mental and emotional spaces, they open up so beautifully with the asana and pranayama practice and the whole rigor of this kind of a disciplined course. They open up so much, and in that kind of an open inner space, philosophy so beautifully enters. Otherwise, the kind of impact which I experienced prior to teaching in this yoga school, what usually takes about an year, I see that kind of a transformative effect happening in just 1 month, right? So I think it's such a beautiful combination, you know, the whole package works so well beautifully.
Our asana and pranayam practice is designed in that particular way, where it is not product oriented, but it is more of a process oriented, where the asana is for each and every body. Not everyone can get into a particular asana. And that's real flexibility. Understanding that is real flexibility. So we don't have like a product. Okay, this is your goal and this is what you have to become. No, it's a process. Just start working towards it. Wherever you reach, fine. If you don't reach, there are 10 different asanas which give the same benefit. So it's not very rigid, and that flexibility, that openness also syncs very well with the philosophical understanding, where we don't have to be extremely rigid into understanding something like this is this and this is that. There are many this is between this and this, and all lead towards one goal. And that's how it just works perfectly in sync with all the aspects of yoga.
The YTTC students here get to eat some special yogic diet food. So can you shed light on what is it and how important it is to maintain the diet?
Well, that's one of the most, in the beginning, austere part for the students to realize that they are going to have some non-spicy, simply cooked food. And we have recorded all the response in the beginning. They are very scared to approach the meal area on day one, that oh my god, just twice a day I'm going to eat. And this is not what I have been eating otherwise in my house, and I'm randomly eating. So timings are fixed here, the menu is fixed. The whole idea behind this is to do the justice to your practice. Like if I end up eating anything and then I want to do some asanas, there is a mismatch between my body and what am I eating. So this is the importance of having a yogic diet, which is, we have not kind of yogic diet, we cannot put into some box of this modern concepts of diet. There is no calorie counting here happening, there is no some specific ban of some carbohydrates or nothing like that. But all we mean is have food which is rich in prana, which is fresh, which is easy to digest, which is light. And we have seen this transformation just after 3 to 4 days in our students who have been having some issues with their digestive health, constipation, or lack of hunger, or whatever imbalance they've had with their digestive system. They have immediately come up to us and said that I feel much better now. And the moment we see that transformation, not just in their body, but also on the mat, the way they feel quickly, flexible, and they feel confident to approach their mat now, they feel lighter. So this is the importance of having yogic diet, which is simple, fresh, easy to digest, and that can make you flexible mentally and physically. And we all know that how food is connected to our consciousness. So whatever we eat is definitely affecting our mind state. So one unique concept that we have here at Govardhan School of Yoga and at the place here which we are in at Eco Village, we offer the food and it becomes prasadam. We offer the food to the Lord first and it becomes prasadam. So you see, we get double benefits here. We are having a sattvic food which is good for physical body, and at the same time we are purifying our consciousness by having prasadam. So I think students are eventually used to that diet, they are very happy about it, and most of them, they follow the same diet plan when they go back home.
Yeah, throughout the time of cooking, we are hearing Brahma Samhita, and it is very good for the consciousness of all of the people while cooking. The consciousness should be very spiritual and very happy. So when the prasad is offered to Krishna, Krishna will be pleased, and obviously all the people who are having the lunch and dinner.
And it's delicious as well.
Yes.
Even though it is not on a very heavier side or heavy spices and all that, but that's where you actually get to taste the taste of the vegetable, of the food, and not just the spices. So that awareness also starts coming in a week or two, and then they just start appreciating it and they start loving it, and many continue.
We have a trek in every TTC program. So what is the significance of a trek and how is it related to the yogic aspect?
Well, thank you for asking this question. I was waiting and I was hoping for this question to come up, and it's a very important question. A lot of people may think, oh, there is a lot of significance on hiking in this school. We have a mountain yatra, and in our teachers training course we have 2 hikes. One is a small hike, one is a medium hike, and there is a cave on top of the other hike, and there is water in the cave, and we swim in the cave. So what is hiking and swimming to do with yoga? Well, it's a very, very big thing that these 2 things have to do with yoga. all the yogis, all the saints, their favorite places to meditate were these two. Either in the river, in some rock in the center of the river, or the river bank, or some even went under the river. And the second place was in the caves. And usually these caves were on top of mountains. So these two places is what yogis visited. And that's what we do. We visit the cave where there is water and we swim there. And we visit the cave which is on top of a hill and we visit there, and that's hiking. So we are actually following a very traditional yogic tradition, classical yogic tradition when it comes to hiking and yoga, and its physical benefits are immense. Bathing in a river or in cold water just nourishes your body inside out, and hiking is a very nice way of training, strengthening your heart,
Right.
increasing all the other aspects of the metabolism, health, stamina and everything else. So both ways it's a win-win situation, and that's why hiking is a very big part of our Govardhan School of Yoga and all the other courses which happen here.
And adding to that, I think the timing of the hike also so very nicely planned. It's not just a frivolous adventure. You know, like in any course in school or college, there is the theory and there is the practicals, right? And in practicals, you realize the theory that you've been learning. And the timing here also is exactly, just a week before the final exams, where after going through 3 weeks of study of the yoga theory, the practice and the philosophy, where you've been studying so much about the prana, the body, the mind, this whole hiking experience is a wonderful experience for that mind over body phenomena. Right? We study so much about the different koshas, we study so much about the different levels of awareness, right? And how a yogi eventually, using the power of their mind, they transcend their body. And this is such a wonderful, and the way it's curated also, Anmolji will gives that, makes sure that every student gets that experience of mind over body. And many times, even in our own practical life, it is these limitations of the mind that become these invisible barriers in our life. And a very good way to cross those barriers is by having a practical experience. So actually the hike, I feel, is the most important practical aspect. I think this is the most important asana that happens.
It's culminating everything
Exactly.
that happens
Yes.
in our course and then bringing it in one
Right,
form.
exactly. So very, very important aspect of the course. Yeah,
But I want to say something about hike.
Yeah, why not?
Hike, maybe?
yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Something about hike. I'm not eligible, but I'll speak.
Record this as well.
So every time some of the students are very doubtful about themselves before going for a hike, that will I be able to make it? I have never gone before, or it's too much for me, I don't think so I'll be able to do it. And somehow Anmol has that wonderful energy where he can somehow positively push everyone till the top. And I have seen their faces once they come back that, wow, I made it. And somehow they cross their own limitations that they had set for themselves, that I can't do this, I won't be able to do this. But the sense of accomplishment that they get after a hike, we have seen that sometimes on the last day we have some nice realizations, sharing sessions, where most of them, they do end up mentioning about the hike, that this was one of the best opening experience for me. I've never done something like this in my life. So I feel that it really positively pushes you beyond your limits that you thought you have for yourself, and now you have some new limits for you which are much higher than what you thought for yourself. So yeah, that's hike.
Okay, now a spontaneous question.
Same like hike, 108.
So Anmolji, can you tell the importance of the 108 Surya Namaskars that the students get to do just after the day of the hike?
All right. So it's an interesting question. Why do we do 108 Surya Namaskars just on the next day of the hike? So there are two reasons for that. One is what Aarti said. No one can ever think in the wildest of their thoughts, what to speak of dreams, that something like this can be pulled off. But when that happens, they all feel so much energized, they all feel so positive, they all feel so confident that yes, I did it. So that is one reason. And the second one is a little more physiological reason when it comes to our hip muscles and the glute muscles, that while climbing, the hip flexors, they get more compressed. And when we do the Surya Namaskar, it is like a counter stretch to those hip flexor muscles. It's a very good thing to do after a hike is done, so that our hips, they are in a much better shape than otherwise. So these are the reasons.